What's that noise?" She frowned at Donovan in confusion. "It sounds like the surf." A blast of wind slammed into Beth's back, knocking her forward. Mist swooped around her. The smell of salt tingled her nostrils. She turned to see a wall of water surging toward them. Cars were whisked away as if they were toys, and palm trees were flattened. People were screaming and running past them, but Beth was paralyzed with fright. The wave reached far above the buildings it engulfed. It was massive, incredible, terrifying. "Tsunami!" The word blazed through Beth's mind. Even though she knew what it was too impossible to believe. A tsunami couldn't strike on her honeymoon. A tsunami couldn't wash her away. The thought was crazy, something that could happen in dreams or fiction. Too impossible for real life, and yet it was happening. Donovan pulled Beth to him. She grasped his arms. Fear of the wave, of not telling him she loved him, and not having a life with him beyond their wedding rippled through her, tearing her insides to shreds with long, curved talons. Water washed over her feet and flowed up her shins. She sucked in a breath a millisecond before the wave plowed into her, tossing her backward, knocking her down and yanking her from Donovan's hold. Her body slid against the black pavement. The feel of her skin peeling away made her grit her teeth. Then the water lifted her and sent her rolling. She fought against the sheer power of it as she would fight off an attacker, but this wave was fiercer than any opponent she had ever faced. Terror had her flailing her arms, kicking her legs, using up more of her oxygen. The water twisted her around and around until she couldn't tell which way was up. Debris pelted her body. Parts of trees, chunks of buildings, random objects from the street. She couldn't see anything in the murky, churning water, but she could feel it. Her arm got stuck in something with metal strings that cut into her skin. She tried to wrench her arm free. Her other hand grasped a tube of rubber, and she realized it was a bicycle tire. Panic rose high in her. The wires scraped against her skin. The second she pried it off, she slammed into a vehicle and rolled over the hood. Branches smacked her. Glass cut her. Desperate for air, she forced herself to go lax. When bubbles danced along her body and floated upward, she worked her arms and legs until she broke the surface. Air filled her lungs a precious second before she was dragged back down. Water flowed into her mouth and down her throat. She pushed herself to the top and coughed up water. Each time she made it to the surface, she gasped for breath only to be shoved under again. She paddled hard. When water pooled off her face, she blinked it from her eyes. A log floated in front of her. Holding on to it, she was able to see everything. Water lapped at the roofs of buildings. She turned to look behind her and found an endless ocean. How can there be so much water? Her eyes ticked left and right, searching for Donovan. Debris zoomed past. Large objects banged into her. "Donovan!" The roar of water deafened her. If Donovan was calling out to her, she couldn't hear him. A car floated past. The driver and passenger were pounding on the windows. Tears flowed down Beth's cheeks. The water was so fast she didn't think it would stop. She screamed for Donovan and searched the torrents for him. Heads bobbed up and down, but she couldn't see any of their faces. She turned her head to see a boat slam into a building. Glass and concrete flew into the air and splashed into the water. Right behind the boat was a second wave, piling more water on top of the roaring flood.